Hey everybody, back for chapter two. Um, my thought process is I got nothing better to do right now, and if I can read to one person out there, great. If not, then I'm enjoying reading this book. So let's jump right back into it. Miles rolled the mask down over his forehead, over his eyes. For a split second, darkness. Then he lined up the hole so his vision cleared and continued stretching it over his nose, mouth, and chin. He looked at himself in the mirror. Spider-Man. Then he rolled the mask back up again. That quick moment of darkness. He'd been doing this, the back and forth, with it, for a few minutes. Miles' father had told him time and time again that when he and Uncle Aaron were young, they used to take their mother's dark stockings, pull them over their heads, cut the rest of the leg part off, and tie it in a knot before pulling robberies. He said it was uncomfortable and took a second to get used to, like being trapped in some kind of cocoon. Aaron didn't want Aaron didn't become no butterfly, though, he would say. He became something else. You're just like me. Uncle Aaron lived in the Baruch houses, a few blocks from Ray's Pizza. Baruch was a huge housing development running along Franklin D. Roosevelt Drive, right along the East River. If it weren't for the fact that there were over 5,000 people living in 15 blocks of brick high rises, it might have been considered prime real estate, waterfront property. Miles would always meet Uncle Aaron on the corner of East Houston and Baruch Place at a bodega, where Aaron would buy grape soda. Then they'd go and get a whole pizza before walking through the forest of skyscrapers to get back to Uncle Aaron's apartment. Because you never walk through the projects by yourself unless you live there. If Miles' parents had known that he used to spend time with Uncle Aaron, he'd be put on punishment for the rest of his life, as in 40 years old with kids of his own, still not allowed to go outside. So Miles would tell them he was going to hang out with a friend at Ray's Pizza, which was technically true, even though there was like 100 Ray's Pizzas in New York, and this friend was, in fact, his uncle. And Miles always made sure he wasn't in Aaron's apartment when he had to call his parents to check in. That way he wouldn't have to lie. He couldn't. It just wasn't his thing. Uncle Aaron's apartment, 4D, had nothing in it but a mattress, a few fold-up chairs, a rickety TV stand with a TV on top, and a small coffee table with a few packs of pantyhose on it. There was also always random shoe boxes, size 9, which Miles knew was too small for his uncle, and he hated the fact that they were also too small for him. Probably just some merch to be boosted on the block, fell off the trucks. Everything else, like all of Aaron's clothes and things, were in trash bags lined up along the wall. He was all the way moved in. As a matter of fact, this was the only place Miles had ever known Aaron to live, but always seemed like he was ready to move out. While Miles and Uncle Aaron ate, sitting on the fold-out chairs with a pizza box on an empty corner of the coffee table, they talked about family, school, and girls. Well, really Uncle Aaron would talk about girls, but he'd do it in a way that made Miles feel like they were talking about girls, even though Miles didn't really have nothing to say about them besides, I don't really have anything to say about them. The one thing Uncle Aaron never talked to Miles about was business. He never told him about the banks or the stores he had hit. He never talked about how he stalked around Wall Street, the only late night ghost town in New York, waiting to catch unassuming, stiff suited stockbrokers working overtime. And he definitely didn't tell Miles about the biggest hit of all, the one he made just before Miles came for a visit one afternoon. The one that would change Miles' life and ruin their relationship. Osborne Industries, the home of the most cutting edge innovation when it came to defense, biomedical, and chemical technologies, and spiders. Genetically mutated, chemically enhanced spiders. It was 45 minutes before Miles would have to leave to make the phone call home. TV playing midday talk shows. Are you ready to see her makeover? Gina, come on out! A duffel bag on the floor next to Miles' chair, full of money and pieces of technology. Aaron thought he could sell on the black market. And from that bag emerged a spider, one that crawled up the leg of the chair and bit Miles right on top of his hand, sending a sizzle down to his fingertips. Ouch! Miles hissed, flicking the spider onto the floor. Uncle Aaron jumped up and stomped it dead. Sorry, kid, he said, with an absolutely no embarrassment in his voice. He smeared the spider on the wood floor like chewing gum on a sidewalk. Miles saw him square himself to get a look at the guts, the goo that was aglow. But you know how it is. Baruch ain't no brownstone. There was a bang on the bathroom door. Miles instantly camouflaged, blending in with the Pepto pink tile on the wall. Miles, you fall in, son? His mother shouted. After he'd come back in from taking out the trash, getting the, you know your uncle was this and that talk, he left his parents and Gank in the living room. His father opening mail, mainly bills, from the day before. His mother flipping through the TV channels looking for Lifetime. And Gank, a belly full of chicken and rice, sitting on a couch waiting for Miles so they can get going back to Brooklyn Visions Academy. Miles shook his head and came out of camo mode. He was too on edge. No, Miles yelled. I'll be out in a second, just brushing my hair. He knew she wouldn't believe that. It was it was one it was the one time he took comfort in knowing she probably assumed he was having some alone time. Miles pulled off the mask and used his hand to try to smooth his hair down. Rio, his father called. Come see this. Hurry up, Miles. I don't want y'all leaving too late. You heard what your father said about those punks robbing kids. His mother walked away from the door, zipping a, what is it? To his father. Miles listened to his mother's retreat before dashing across the hall to his bedroom. He stuffed the mask into his backpack and grabbed his brush off the table so he can keep up with the whole hairbrushing story. I am ready, Miles said, entering the living room, acting like he hadn't been in the bathroom for forever. Brush, brush, brush. The top goes forward, down to the left, down to the right, down and back, in that order. His mother was standing beside the couch reading a piece of mail that she pressed to her chest once Miles walked in the room. Miles figured it was another bill. There was always another bill. If he asked about it, he would just trigger another lecture about how important it was to do well in school. And after the last 3 days he'd had, UPS is here. Oh, that scared me. Sorry. And after the last 3 days he'd had, he couldn't take another one of those. All the brushing ain't gonna get it, son, his father said, tapping Miles' mother on the leg to snap her out of her trance. Rio. Startled, she folded a letter, stuffed it in the envelope, and handed it back to Miles' father. Sorry, she said, approaching Miles. She ran her palm along his head. You need a haircut, Papi. This weekend when you come home, we're going to the barber shop. Can't have you out here woofing, his father teased. Miles kept brushing his head and brushed his parents off. You ready? He asked Gank, who had gotten up from the couch and flung his backpack over his shoulder. A goofy grin spread across his face. Gank always loved these moments with Miles and his family. More ammo for jokes. Yup. Take care, Mrs. M. Gank came in for a hug. Bye, Gank. Please keep him in line. I always try, but the boy's crazy. Whatever, man, Miles said, hugging his mother and kissing her on the cheek. Mr. Jeff! Gank reached out his hand. Miles' father took it, squeezed it tight. Gank's face wrinkled with pain. Next Sunday we're having an all-veggie dinner. You in? You know it, Gank chimed. Miles' father looked at his mother, shook his head. I tried, honey, but it didn't work. He laughed. Okay, okay. You boys be safe. Please, Gank, tell your mother I said hello. Miles, call us when you get there. Of course. He slipped his brush in his bag. Don't forget, mijo. I won't. Once outside, Miles was about to ask Gank how his weekend had gone, especially since he knew time at home had been weird for Gank since his parents had split up. But Gank had a way of sensing those questions those kind of awkward questions so Miles could get it out. So, but Gank had a way of sensing those kind of awkward questions before Miles could get it out. Gank countered with a doozy of his own. So there's something I've been meaning to ask you, like, forever. Gank had just finished tying his shoe at the bottom of Miles' stoop. Miles took the concern on the tip of his tongue and slipped it underneath it, like gum, to be saved for later. Miles knew Gank was probably setting him up for some joke he'd been thinking about for like the last 30 minutes. He was one of those friends you couldn't leave alone with your parents because he would ask all kinds of ridiculous questions, digging for secret embarrassing stuff that your mother and father would see as cute. Stuff like Miles used to cry every Martin Luther King Jr. Day, not because of what happened to Dr. King, but because the television and radio would play clips of his speeches and Miles always thought he sounded like a ghost. Or Miles had irritable bowel syndrome and crapped his pants until he was 10. What? Miles groaned as they passed Miss Shine's house. He remembered the way the mattress smelled when he moved it out for her, the way it felt to have those mystery stains and globs of matted white cat hair brush against his cheeks. Ugh. Alright, don't get mad, Gang Prep. But just say it. Okay, so like your last name. It don't really make sense to me. What, Morales? Yeah, I'm half Puerto Rican. Gank stopped walking and twisted his face up at Miles. Like, duh. So? So your mother's name is Rio Morales, right? Correct. And your father's name is Jefferson Davis. Two for two. So then why isn't your name Miles Da Gank's eyes widened. Oh, snap. Miles Davis? He stopped walking again, this time in front of Mr. Frankie's house. Gank folded himself in half, exploding into laughter. Wait, wait. He tried to catch his breath while Miles laser stared him down. Miles, I'm sorry. Wait, Miles Davis? I just, I never thought of that until now. Oh, man. Hold on. The laughter tapered off. Okay. Whew. Okay. You done? I'm done. I'm so done. Sorry, man. It just caught me off guard. They continued down the block. Anyway, that's not even the reason, Miles said. But I'm glad you think that's so funny. So then why? Gank, why are you acting like you know my mother? Like you don't know my mother? Better yet, you act like you don't know my abuela? Now Miles laughed. Nah, seriously. I don't know. I think it's something else. Like what? Miles shrugged. Back in the day, my pops and my uncle did enough dirt in their lives to make Davis a bad word in some circles. I just look like them both and live in the same neighborhood. So I don't know. I wonder. Gotcha, Gang said. The funny finally all faded. There was enough. There was an empty quarter water jug on the sidewalk. They were shaped like small plastic barrels. But Miles always pretended they were grenades when he was younger. He kicked it and it rolled ahead in front of him. He cleared his throat. That's also why I think my superpowers are messing up. Uh, you think they're messing up because of your last name? Gang asked. No, but because of what my last name means. I mean, what that part of me is. Like, what if I'm not cut out to be, I don't know, good? It all made sense. It all just made so much sense to him. Like how really tall people usually have really tall parents, or how you can be predisposed to be an alcoholic if one of your parents is. Miles had what he always considered complicated genetics, bad blood. And to make it worse, his father and uncle were 16 when they started in crime, which was Miles' age now. So maybe that part of his bloodline was fighting whatever changes to it that the spider bite had caused, like some kind of grimy blood cell fighting off anything awesome inside him. Dude, shut up. I'm serious, man. You're also stupid. Like, that's just silly. Like, that's like if you play basketball, your kids are going to play? Good chance, Miles said. He used his thumb and index finger as a pincher claw to pick up the empty jug he just kicked. Residual responsibility from Friday's trash cleanup. When was the last time you've seen Michael Jordan Jr.? I'm not sure if Michael Jordan has a junior Gank. Miles tossed a grenade in a neighbor's open garbage bin. Exactly. And do you know why you don't know if Jordan has a little Jordan? Gank asked. Because little Jordan didn't grow up to be little Jordan. Miles didn't reply. I mean, you don't even know what your buzzy head alarm thingy is all out of whack. Might be because it's just wearing off. Like maybe the super stuff from the spider venom or whatever was like a virus that took a few years to finally pass through your system. Or maybe it's just hiccuping because you're growing. Shoot, for all we know, you could mess around and lose all your superpowers when you finally get a girlfriend. Gank's jaw dropped. Sounds like something my uncle would have said. Miles stepped over a pile of dog crap. Lucky for you, the girlfriend thing ain't happening no time soon. Gank fired off, tapping Miles on the arm. Yeah, for you either, Miles shot back. Look, the point I'm making is true. You don't know what's causing it, but worrying about it probably isn't helping you. You gotta de stress, relax a little, have some fun with it. Gank sent a wave through his arm as if he were breakdancing. Shoot, if I had what you have, man, what? What would you do? Miles asked, his tone short and sharp. Gank stopped walking for the third time. The train station was to the right. Gank peered down the street, then looked to the left to make sure no cars were coming. Let's go straight. I'll show you. 2 blocks to the basketball court. When they got there, 2-on-2 was in play. What we doing here? Miles asked as he and Gank strolled up to the gate. Just a little pit stop. You asked me what I would do. Oh, maybe next time, man, Miles said, peering through the gate. They're already running a game. But Gank wasn't having it. Let's go, Gank headed in. Nah, man, Miles grabbed his arm. Come on, it'll be fun. Gank, Hey, guys! He walked onto the court, strutted right into the middle of the game. Miles followed behind him, but stopped at the sideline. Time out, Gank called, jamming the fingers of one hand into the palm of the other, making a T. Yo, what you doing? A short guy with a puffed up chest asked, picking up his dribble. You're not playing, so you can't call timeout. Matter of fact, you can't call nothing. He flared his nostrils. Miles shook his head. He wasn't in a mood for a fight and couldn't risk having his eye blacked or anything like that. Get off the court, Bruce Lee, the short guy said. Who is Bruce Lee? You mean Bruce Lee? Yank said. The guys all looked around at each other, bewildered. You don't know who Bruce is? The comedian. Shorty puff chest, put his arms out and blew out his cheeks to do his best and worst imitation of a fat person. Fat funny man and Lee because that's my last name, Gang deadpanned. Miles stifled a laugh. Wait, your last name is Lee for real? Shorty Puff Chest asked. Yup, and his name. Gang pointed at Miles. Is Miles Davis. Miles sighed, rolling his eyes. Like the jazz dude? Nah, like the dude who's about to take your money, Gang cracked. Oh, word. Another one of the guys spoke up. He was light skinned, the color of flu mucus, and slimy too, from sweat. And how he gonna do that? Dunk contest. Wait, what? Miles squawked, now stepping timidly onto the court. Mucus Man smiled and tapped the dude standing next to him. A man built like a superhero spoke up. Now you talking my language. I don't know if you know who I am, but ain't too many cats around here can outjump me, he bragged. Yeah, Benji got bunnies. Jump out the gym. Mucus Man played hype man. No doubt. And little Jazz Man over there looked like he ain't ever got nut fuzz yet. And he also looked like he ain't got no money. The last guy on the court finally chimed in. He'd be standing off to the side. He'd been standing off to the side drinking water. He was a bear. Not an actual bear, but not far from one either. He don't. And as soon as Gank said it, the guys laughed and shooed him and Miles away like pesky flies. But, Gank added, I'll bet these. Gank slipped off his sneakers. Air Max 90s, infrareds, OGs. Apparently everyone wants them. And this is my first time wearing them. They're probably worth like $300. Gank wasn't a sneakerhead, but his father was. Yeah, his dad. His two favorite hobbies were hounding Gank about school. He and Miles' parents had that in common, and collecting rare sneakers, the bulk of which he gave to his son when he moved out, under the condition that Gank took care of him. Of course, Gank never had to because Miles took care of him for him. What? Again from Miles. What size? The man called Benji, the one built like a superhero, asked. Size 10. Gank ignored Miles, eyeballed Benji's feet. Your size. Benji smiled, revealing a space between each jagged tooth. He dug into his sock, pulled out a wad. His buddies reached into their own pockets, socks, bags, and put up their own cash, too. After counting out the $300, they laid it on the court, placing one of the sneakers on top to keep the evening breeze from turning dollars into feathers. Then everyone cleared out in front of the hoop to give Benji and Miles space. Benji dribbled the ball intensely, as if he were pounding the head against the pavement. Miles got adrift. He shot a glance at Gank, who was now wearing Miles' backpack on his front. Gank smiled, followed by his usual shrug. Little man probably can't even grab the net, Benji said. He held the ball in both hands, took 2 steps effortlessly, jammed it through the rim. No warning, no warm-up. Should be a piece of cake. Or a piece of steak, Gank said from the sideline. Miles swung around, ice grilled him. Gank mouthed, sorry, as Miles called for the ball. But as soon as Benji threw it to him, zipping it as if he were shooting a fireball from his hands, Miles realized he knew very little about basketball. He bounced the ball fumblingly, slapping at it with a stiff hand. Okay, no more dribbling. Dribbling wasn't his thing. He gripped the ball. The tips of his fingers instantly became sticky. It felt like there were tiny cannons firing off inside him. A tingle in his elbows and fingertips. A surge of electricity shooting down his back, the back of his legs, throbbing in the soft spot behind his knees. And then, as if it were nothing, he took 2 steps, jumped eye level with the orange ring, and easily dropped the ball in. Yo, Mucus Man said, shaking his head. That's all he said. No follow-up. The others didn't say anything, but their faces were all saying the same thing. Yo. Hi, little man, I see you, Benji said, taking the ball. So let's just get this over with for real this time. He started from the three-point line, took off running, jumped, and turned his back toward the rim midair. Holding the ball with both hands, he brought it down between his legs and flung it up over his head and behind him, hammering it into the net with a grunt. Shorty puffed chest repeated, like a good hype man. He grabbed his chest and howled dramatically. That was so hard you almost took me out. Woo! Mucus hooted. Don't get no better than that, Lil. Benji boasted, kicking the ball over to Miles. Oh, it does, from Gank. Yeah, whatever, Bruce, we'll see. Miles went back to the three-point line. Again, no dribbling. He eyed the rim, but right before he was about to take off a running start, Gank, of course, waved them off. Hold on. He skittered to the foul line, shoeless and double backpacked. Listen, fellas, this is fun and all, but we don't have all night. So how about we just get this over with? We will as soon as your man makes a fool of himself by trying to do what I just did. Yeah. Gank held up one finger, then pointed at Benji. No. How about this? If he can do the dunk you did without all the running, we win. Wait. Shorty Puff Chest spoke up. So you saying if he can do the back dunk that Benji did on a vertical jump, y'all win. Exactly. And if he can't, we win and y'all get your corny asses out of here? Yup, Miles said. The whole thing had been a bad idea, but this was the only part of the bad idea that sounded like a good idea. They still had to go back to school. Miles still had to make a phone call to his parents, and even though he said the train was messed up, because the train's always messed up, he didn't want to lie. Benji looked surprised, but everyone backed off the court again as Miles stepped in up to the rim. He looked up at it, the familiar webbing of the net, the rusty orange circle, the dirty glass backboard. He glanced at Gank and then at the court goons, Shorty Puff Chest, Mucus Man, Benji, and the bear. In all the movies Miles had watched, there had always been some kind of pep talk or intense battle drum rhythm playing in the hero's mind before these kind of situations. But in Miles' head, he heard silly music, like whistling and a theme song of Super Mario Brothers. Whatever. All the staring up at the rim concentration was just for show anyway. After the tension in his body had built enough, Miles sprang up. He twisted in midair before spreading his legs into a full split, dropping the ball down, then drawing it up over his head and into the net with such force that veins of cracked glass traveled through the backboard. No big deal to Miles or Gank. But the looks on the faces of the court goons, they might as well have just witnessed the second coming of Jordan. Or maybe even the second coming of Earl the Goat, Monagoat. Everyone in New York had heard the legend about how only at 6'1" Earl had snatched a dollar bill off the top of the backboard and left change. Benji and his boys were completely stunned, until Gank reached for his shoes and money. Then the howls turned into barks, and the astonishment turned to anger. "What you think you doing?" Benji pressed up on Gank as he slipped his feet back into the sneakers and picked up the cash. "Y'all lost. I mean, nobody's beaten that," Gank bragged. "Maybe I can't beat that, but I can beat you. So I suggest you leave the cash." "Y'all hustled us," Mucus Man cried. Street ballers always cry about being hustled, even though they hustle people nonstop. Nobody likes to lose. "Oh, so it was okay for y'all to take advantage of kids, though?" Miles said. "You just couldn't resist what you thought would be an easy come up on a fresh pair of sneakers. I mean, we got backpacks, man." He didn't necessarily care about the money. This was all just Gank's attempt to get him to take his mind off of being Spider-Man and all the superhero mumbo jumbo. But now it was about principle, and these clowns keeping their word. "Don't matter. Leave the money and leave with your lives." Gank looked at Miles, nodded. Miles shook his head. Gank nodded again. And again, Miles shook his head. "No." "What?" Gank was now somewhere between a nod and a shake. "Yeah, what?" Benji repeated. The rest of the lumpheads gathered around. "I said no," Miles confirmed. It's amazing how quiet the basketball court gets when things are about to go south. There's stillness, a dead air. The streetlights had flickered on by now, and what was left of the sun was just about gone. Only the faintest only the faintest recognition of blue and black in the sky. "Guys, you don't have to." "Shut up," Benji shot back at Gank, pointing at him. "Hold him." Shorty Puffchest and Mucus Man instantly flanked Gank, grabbing him by the arm. "Miles!" Gank called, but before Benji could even sucker punch Miles' best friend, or reach for those shoes, or do whatever he was going to do, Miles had already stepped in front of him. There was a tingling just behind his kneecap, in his ears, his palms, and fingertips too. Benji flashed that raggedy reptilian smile. Miles could hear his mouth curve, hear the thick saliva on the back of Benji's tongue, and pushed against Miles' shoulder to move him out of the way. But as soon as his hand touched Miles, Miles grabbed it and flung Benji around, away from Gank. Benji shook his head clear and charged, but Miles leaped over him. A clean jump, clearing Benji's head. He ran toward Gank and speared himself into a jump kick, spreading his legs at the last minute to miss Gank's face, but catching Mucus and Shorty straight in the jaws. It wasn't enough to hurt them bad. Miles wasn't trying to, but it was enough to get them to let go of Gank, who then ran back to the side of the court. Benji grabbed Miles from behind, and in a flash, Miles delivered 3 elbows to Benji's breadbasket. Zoop, zoop, zoop. Benji doubled over. Miles didn't finish him. Wanted to give him a chance to chill out, call off his dogs. Shorty stalked over, his hands up, assuming the hood boxer pose. I don't want no trouble, Miles said, his body still firing tiny rockets through his veins. Shorty didn't respond, just continued to set up his stance, then reset it. He finally threw a jab. Miles bobbed. He threw another. Miles leaned back, moved from side to side, his arms down, letting Shorty know he didn't want to fight. Hit his ass! Benji squealed, still trying to catch his breath. Shorty threw a third jab. This one, Miles caught. He grabbed Shorty's wrist with one hand and used his other one to cup the joint of Shorty's elbow so that Shorty would have no choice but to punch himself in the face. A clean fist to the nose. His own fist. Miles heard the septum snap. Arg! Shorty yelled, slapping his other hand to his face. Blood, lots of it, started pouring from his nostrils. For a moment Miles was stuck. The sight of blood startled him, but he didn't mean for it to hit so hard. Mucus backed off, and instead coming for Miles, he went for Gank. Gank made a bumbling dash across the court, yelling at the top of his lungs, while the bear came toward Miles. You have nothing to do with this, man, Miles said. You hustled us, he growled. Then he rocketed toward Miles. Miles again jumped over him and kicked him in the back of the head, using some of the leverage to push off and dart over to Gank. He grabbed him under the arm like a toddler and hopped up on the fence, dragging Gank up on the metal grate with him. But not before Mucus Man grabbed the backpack. The one Gank was wearing on his front. Miles' backpack. Miles! No, Gank, don't let go! Miles yelled, one hand clawing on the iron gate and the other clutching the armpit of his friend. He needed that bag. His secret was in there, red and black. Give it to me, Mucus Man growled. Y'all leaving everything here. I can't hold it, Gank yelled. As Mucus Man yanked and yanked on one of the straps, the other pressed into the crook of Gank's free arm like it was going to rip straight through it. Gank, do not let go of that bag. Gank looked up at Miles, his face full of worry. Miles! Mucus Man tugged again, and Gank's arm dropped, the bag dropping with it. Now loose, Miles climbed up further up the fence, yanking Gank with him. I'm sorry, Gank panted. Just hold on and stay up here, Miles ordered as Gank gripped the gate, looking down from the top. Below, Mucus Man started unzipping the bag as the rest of the goons waited like alligators in basketball shorts. They weren't going to get out of this the easy way. Miles took a deep breath and dove into the gator pit. And that is chapter 2. I am going to take a break. I just read through both of those pretty quickly. Get some water and see what my UPS package was. See you guys later.